It's recording. All right then, 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, welcome to Chaitaku. We're doing a brand new setup today. Got the video on. We got Dan here with us. Say hello, Dan.
Hi, you're right. How are you today?
All right. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Thanks for joining us. And
Good.
happy New Year to everyone. This is like our first recording Chaitaku for 2025. So happy New Year. Here we go. And we'll start. We're going to do a brand new kind of thing. Like we've got video on today, so might be a bit different, might be a bit exciting today. So that's all good. Hope you guys are all well. Hope Dan, you're really well.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah. All's good here at Music Fishbowl Towers, so we're all good.
That's good. Yeah, I know you guys are recording loads of stuff with guests and stuff, so that's awesome. And check Dan out at Music Fishbowl.
Yep, Music Fishbowl.
And that's on Instagram, on TikTok as well.
Well, TikTok-ish.
Instagram mostly, but I think I think you post sometimes there, like
occasionally, but not too much. I haven't for a while, to be fair. But I should get it up and running again. It's so easy, but I get lazy. That's my problem.
Yeah. It's fine. But we're pretty much like we're everywhere. And you can catch Chaitaku's on TikTok as well. We're on Spotify. If I can get the audio recording of this, I can put it on Spotify. And then YouTube, I'll put it up as well. Right, awesome. So had an idea to do this because we've just last couple of weeks managed to watch 2 musical biopics that's just come out recently. We watched Better Man, Dan and I, and we watched The Complete Unknown the other day, Dylan's one. So I thought it'd be really good to talk about it, and especially get Dan on because you are an expert on music and biopics.
Thank you.
Info and all that, and the Dylan expert. So obviously, I have no idea about Dylan. So you're the perfect person to get for this, and I think it'll be really good, and also give us like a more in-depth, knowledge of everything as well, and from the film and from music, and it'll be good for like maybe like my Chaitaku audience and then your Music Fishbowl audience to like get an insight on stuff as well.
This is almost an episode of Music Fishbowl as much as it is Chaitaku at this point with 2 musical.
I think it'd be good. Crossover. It makes sense.
It's a bit of a crossover this one more than anything.
Films and music, perfect, isn't it? Perfect. So we're going to talk about those 2, and anything else that comes across the mind. But thank you so much, Dan, for joining us. Before we get started, what are we drinking today? I've got chai latte today.
Yep, I've got Dr. Pepper because Dr. Pepper Zero, always a dietary drink, never have the full fat ones. So that's mine. Well, I don't drink the tea or coffee, so I'm a bit
that's okay.
Bit of a letdown for your podcast.
No, it's fine. I mean, like I'm a bit hungover today as well. I know you are as well, but you're off to the gym in a bit, which is much better than me. I'm just doing housework. Right, let's get started then. So a couple of weeks ago, Dan and I watched Better Man, which is a new Robbie Williams biopic.
Yeah.
Robbie Williams is it's making a bit of a comeback in a kind of I know he had a Netflix documentary coming out, and then he's slowly getting back into the news again, and then this one come out of nowhere, and it's not only a biopic, but it's like an experimental biopic by the person who did. It's directed by Michael Gracie, who's done. He's worked with Baz Luhrmann, and he's done The Greatest Showman, which I haven't seen, but I know there's like massive elaborate set pieces, like very the nature of it is very exaggerated and very out there, and it's a very popular movie, and it became really, really big with its colors and vibe and energy. And I think they brought that to Better Man. Not only is it Robbie Williams biopic, but it's like a big exaggerated experimental, massively out of the box thing. Most importantly, Robbie Williams is portrayed as an ape, which is really interesting, and it's very risque, but we'll talk about that during our review of it. But it's a big biopic of his rise to fame, early years with Take That, and then going solo, and it covers a lot of the usual tropes of a biopic, and then it just does it in a really, really spectacular, different kind of way. What do you think of Better Man then? I enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was a great film. I think, as this is technically a global podcast, I think it is worth mentioning who Robbie Williams is, because
I think this is one of the reasons why it hasn't performed.
It struggled a bit because of
especially outside of the UK. But good point, because obviously we're British, we know Robbie Williams, but
and I think people don't put it this way, Robbie Williams' level of fame in the UK, especially 20 years ago, 20,
Mm.
25 years ago, was probably bigger than Taylor Swift's fame in
Yeah.
reality. Let's be real.
I mean, he was
He
like in the biggest boy band in the world at that
it,
point. And
yeah,
that was like big.
they're biggest in the UK. They never hit America as well.
I mean, I know that like Europe and stuff. Yeah, maybe not the
Yeah,
world, but I know that we hit Europe and other places. But
yeah.
America, yeah. So I
They're
can't really see the
certainly
world
the
there.
UK's biggest boy band, and so effectively with Robbie Williams, for those who don't know, is that basically he was in this boy band called Take That, which is a group of lads from up north in the UK who were put together. There happened to be one exceptionally talented songwriter in that band called Gary Barlow, who has
Yeah.
basically written some of Britain's probably the only quintessential songs for the past 30 years are basically written by Gary Barlow. The only person otherwise to be writing them, as these are songs that get used in montages, these type of songs which are basically, if the Queen has a birthday party, which she did, Gary Barlow organised that basically, but his songs are the ones getting played because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is
He's very,
quintessential
very
British
influential. Yeah.
songwriting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I say very much like he became like the poster boy
Yes.
and the most like I wouldn't say like the most successful out of all of them,
And
but
he
probably up
wasn't the
there.
best looking either. He was
Yeah,
probably, but he
yeah,
became the one who was
yeah,
clearly the talented one, and people
yeah,
noticed
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Whilst Robbie was kind of the one who maybe, if anything, was lucky to be there.
Mm,
Um, he went solo, and it just turned out that this man was an incredible entertainer.
mm,
As in, what he can do to keep an audience is incredible.
mm,
We don't really know how much of his songwriting is him or not, because obviously he co-writes everything, mainly with his producer Guy Chambers. So we don't really know how much of his writing is down to him or down to Guy Chambers, who is a legendary writer in his own right. But yeah, basically he just is this incredible entertainer, and he kind of just exploded in the UK to the point where he basically was the biggest celebrity in the UK, and probably is still the biggest celebrity in the UK of the last 30 years.
mm.
Like there is nobody who doesn't know who he is other than children who are too young to even have a concept of what celebrity is. Like he
Yeah,
just
yeah.
is a huge deal. Everyone knows him.
Yeah, during the 90s, like when he was in Take That and like yeah, one of the biggest like
Yeah.
boy bands.
Like
90s and even like yeah, like all the way through the 90s, I'd say early-ish and even mid 2000s, he was still doing his thing. But most of them, Barlow was,
yeah.
Robbie Williams was as well. And he's always just been in the public eye, even when he wasn't
Yeah.
doing something. He was just around doing something. Obviously, like it's well documented in British like media and everything about
Yeah.
struggles and with drug addiction and alcoholism and just finding his way and
Mhm.
had the big fallout with Take That and it's like feud with Gary Barlow and that kind of stuff as well. So that's kind of like documented and that's like
Yeah.
it's like the British consciousness, like in the media and everything, it's kind of been there, even
Yeah.
though I haven't been following his career like too much solo, but you kind of knew like he was always on television doing something or so it was in the media kind of thing.
Yeah, I try to think of like an American. I know an American equivalent in terms of like the size of artist, but I don't know the equivalent of the size of fame, if that makes sense. Someone who is that famous, who is quintessentially American. The rest of the world is more likely to know the American one. Let's be real. I'm trying to think of who that might be, and it's really hard to pinpoint the size of Robbie Williams as a cultural figure. I mean, he is one of the few, like him and the Gallagher brothers are kind of like some of the, because Gary Barlow's not a cultural figure in the same way, even though he's seen as one of the greatest songwriters. He's not a cultural figure. He's not quite cultural figure like Robbie, Elton. Again, the Gallagher brothers, like they are on a different level of like that. They are Bob Dylan levels of cultural figures. Like they have the cultural impact of Bob Dylan, what he has in America. Whilst Bob Dylan is a hit maker in the UK, as in he had chart success, he didn't have a cultural impact in the same way. Whilst in the US, he still has a massive cultural impact. So that might be a good comparison in a way. Actually, that might be the best way to say it. I don't know. But yeah, that's basically who Robbie is. I think the film kind of captures that. But The problem is, I think Britain underestimates how big Robbie Williams actually is as a person and a figure. I think we underestimate it because the British aren't happy to just, to boast about their own their own people. So,
Yeah,
like, I think we underestimate it ourselves as well. I don't think the film fully captures that, but. Your question was, how did I feel about the film? So I should get back to that.
no, but this is all
I
like
really
very
like
relevant.
it. I really like it.
But,
I really enjoyed it. To
yeah,
me, it was a tropey biopic that just did the tropes perfect. It's a little bit like, we're kind of discussing like this kind of before the podcast. It's kind of like, if I want to watch a music biopic and be entertained and not be challenged and not take a risk that it might be bad, this is the film that secures me that. It secures me. It's simple. It's easy. It's just...
it's different as well. Like,
it's executed well.
It's like big budget. Like this, it's $100 million like budget. And that's the risk they took to do something like this. Like, it's very like...
That's all the CGI, isn't it?
It's all the CGI, like thousands per second. And then they have big elaborate set pieces. There's the really big one that's just officially released online now. The big set piece in Piccadilly Circus.
Yeah, which is beautiful.
Like, really like amazing. Like I think one of the showstoppers, like it's just like it feels like one long take, like continuous.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like even just by itself, it's awesome. But yeah, as you were saying, it's like inside the UK and in Europe, Robbie Williams is well known, and but then are you going to be doing like $100 million film just for someone who's only in Europe and UK and the UK only?
Yeah,
because $100 million means worldwide, global. But
there is something we should say, and this is in terms of music, not as a cultural figure. You know how they always say Oasis and Red Hot Chili Peppers are parallels to each other. Oasis are as big in the UK as the Red Hot Chili Peppers are in the US. Swap it round, that's the size of the bands. The Red Hot Chili Peppers in the UK is the size of Oasis in the US, which I think is quite sizable. Now, Robbie has got a comparison like that. Weirdly, it's two British artists, but the British band Bush really didn't do well in the UK at all. They haven't done that well, but they did have success in the US. Big success. So in terms of actual musical success, they parallel Robbie because the size of them in the UK, where they had one minor hit, basically, one or two minor hits, is the same as Robbie in the US. Robbie technically broke America, and we have to remember that as well, because he did get on the charts and has got a song that some people do remember. I'm trying to think which song it is. I'm actually Googling it now so that we can find out. Which song was it that charted? It might actually, to be honest, Wikipedia's hasn't even got the USA column on it to say, so I'm not even going to look there. I think the song, it was She's the One, but I'm not sure. One of the ballady songs did chart in the US. And it had somewhere like 20 in the mid-20s or something, I think. I might be wrong, forgive me. But so some people are aware of him, which is why there's limited screenings over there. But obviously it's not doing well because the mass public don't know. But I don't actually think that detracts from watching this film, because if you watch it and you don't know who he is, I think it stands up as a very good film about a fictional artist. You don't know who he is.
I think this is the thing. So obviously, it charts Robbie Williams from pretty much childhood to around about just before. I think it's just early 2000s. No, maybe even less than that.
I think
basically
swing when you're winning, or whatever it's called. The first album of swing American Songbook covers that he did, that had just come out when the film ends, because that's the big set piece at the end of the film on promotion for that album, I believe. So
so
it's kind of 2000 and 2001 kind of
so not like even after that, it's just up until there, and it's mostly like not only himself and his rise to fame with Take That and Boyzone, but I think the central narrative is, I think, the relationship with his family, most importantly his dad. Kind of like it comes around to that. I don't want to give too many spoilers away for this one, but I think we can talk about it without spoilers too much. Because I think it's not really a spoiler.
I think for so many people don't necessarily know who he is, and so many people do know who he is, that for the British public, they will know the story. So you're not gonna you're not gonna spoil too much. But with the American public who don't know him,
Yeah,
you can actually spoil quite a nice film if they choose to watch it without even knowing who he is. So,
yeah,
it's a bit
yeah.
difficult,
So
really, knowing what to
yeah,
say about it.
yeah. So I think definitely, like, it. If you know Robbie Williams, I think it's a satirical kind of take on his life, because it's a
Yeah,
bit of like, much parody. Yeah, it's got trophy stuff in there, but it's like, yeah, a satirical take on his life, which is kind of like, we've had a documentary recently on Netflix, the Robbie Williams one, where he talks about a lot of this stuff more in depth. I recommend that. It's 3 episodes on Netflix. But this is just like a big, elaborate, experimental,
yeah,
really like fun. It got quite emotional, but very big budget. Like, I'm an entertainer kind of thing. That's
yeah.
Robbie Williams' personality as that entertainer
Oh,
there.
the whole film is pure Robbie. Like,
Yeah,
it wouldn't make a film any other way, which is
yeah.
what I love
It's just
about it.
yeah. And for people who don't know, like Americans or anything, I think it's a really good, tale of someone comes to stardom, and you don't have to even see it as as a real life biopic. I think it's a
Yeah,
really good like movie about someone who becomes a pop star and struggles with a lot of the things that when people hit fame and fortune, especially at a young age. I think he was like 16 when he was in Take That. And
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
that
He
really
was
hit
the
him.
baby of the band as well,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, he was the youngster.
So
So,
that, and then on top of that, you just you get like these really really like amazing visuals, and I think
yeah,
and empowered by his music. I think his songs are amazing, like
yeah,
really good. But Gary Barlow gets a lot of you know um amazing props for his songwriting, but I think Robbie's really good with his writing and
yeah,
singing as
yeah.
well.
And what people forget about Robbie is that he left Take That and he became a rock star. His first two
Yeah,
albums were rock albums. Then Sing When You're Winning came out, his third album, where he delved
yeah,
more into pop, but it was still heavily rock. Escapology was quite heavy in rock as
yeah,
well, which
yeah,
came out in 2000. So he became a rock star. He definitely embedded himself in the Britpop landscape. He just never gets considered or looked at as a Britpop artist because
yeah, and
he's
I think
not he's a pop star at the same
yeah.
time as being a rock star. So
Exactly, yeah,
yeah,
and he's also just speaks from his experience and the way
yeah,
it comes, and we see some of that here, but definitely the documentary on Netflix where you do see like where all these you know lyrics and all these feelings and emotions from his songs are coming from. Like when I heard Angels, like when I was a kid, I was like,
yeah.
who's like that's
I
Robbie
mean,
Williams? Like that's like completely left field for
yeah,
what he was doing. Like that was like a ballad, like an
yeah.
iconic ballad,
Huge ballad.
like Robbie Williams. This is like.
Yeah, and
Even he
again,
does
that's one of
some
those.
like,
It's one of those British montage songs.
oh,
It gets in montages of reality TV and things like that. When of small people doing great things. That's where it
yeah,
goes. It's just one of those quintessentially British songs, and
yeah,
so many of them came out in that era. I think there was a big push of being proud to be British. Even the
yeah,
government were pushing it. The New Labour government were pushing that and things.
yeah.
So it was a huge part of the era. I want to talk about Monkey. I want to talk about
So
him.
this is the this is where the movie really takes the big risk.
Yeah.
So Robbie Williams says he never felt fully human, which is where the idea came from. But then to fully go all in on that, it costs a lot of money to do. And
Yeah.
in that sense, yeah, I get where he's coming from. At the beginning, I was like, that's a bit of a gimmick. That's something
Yeah.
maybe for like a 10-minute music video that Robbie could have done. Like, when he does like these experimental, Rock DJ was like a really amazing experimental music video that's really iconic. Like this could have been that. But to do a whole film with it, don't know if it was
Yeah.
going to be working or not. On hindsight, I think it works.
Oh, I think it works
I think it
spectacularly.
works really well after you get adjusted to it, and you kind of forget that all right, this is he's just an ape, and it's not very distracting. And obviously, it's by Weta, who did the same visuals as the recent Planet of the Apes film, so it looks like
Which is mental.
amazing.
That's
Yeah,
doing it.
he doesn't. You don't think, oh, that's distracting. He just looks like work. It's integrated really well into every
Yeah.
scene. Like,
Yeah.
Like he doesn't feel like he sticks out. He just feels
No.
like a character. And obviously, he in this sense, because you've got the CGI up there, he's Robbie's played by an actor called John O'Davies.
Yeah,
Who,
well, there's several
pretty,
people playing him, really, isn't there? Because you've got
yeah,
Robbie himself doing some vocals.
you
You've
got
got the guy who does the singing vocals of Robbie, who is now having a little bit of a TikTok career. I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, but he's having a TikTok career. Then you got the guy who's actually doing the mocap,
so,
and then the guy doing the voice, who I don't know if it's the
yeah.
same
So you
guy or
got
not.
you got
Like,
Adam Tucker who does additional vocals on some
that's
of
the
the
one.
songs, and then Robbie Williams re-recorded a lot of the songs as
Yeah.
well. And then, but no, John O'Davies is the mocap and the physical voice acting.
Mm.
But the other two are kind of well, Robbie himself and Adam Tucker like chipping in and out, but they kind of melded it all together. So actually, it's kind of
Yeah.
seamless in that respect. Like you
But
can't see, it doesn't stick out too much when
so,
someone's singing.
so as far as I'm aware, Adam comes in when the song is dramatically different to what was originally recorded. So that's something I do want to mention as well about the film, is that the soundtrack to the film, obviously because it's a musical, things have been changed. Obviously they integrate what's going on around the characters within the songs, so you will hear sound effects of things going on. The versions of the songs are exceptionally good. What they've done to them are brilliant, and like things like the version of She's the One that's in it is a duet, and Adam sings the whole thing as far as I'm aware, simply because having to harmonize with the duet partner, having to have Robbie Young stripping down all the production on it meant that Robbie's vocals would become exposed because he's older. So I mean, we have to also say this boy band era, they sound spectacular for 50-year-olds compared to the rock stars and the pop stars of old. This boy band era from the 90s do sound spectacular in their 50s still. So he does still sound great, but again, the age of the voice, as much as it's a great voice and it still sounds great and it's working with age as well, like it's becoming wise as a voice. Again, you can't have a young man's voice sound wise in the same way. So there's those times. So Adam takes the whole song there. I really like the soundtrack.
I think they're really good renditions.
Spectacular.
Yeah, really is. And if you know these songs, I think they are really good renditions of it that go parallel to it, and they're going to be a little bit different. I'm happy they're not like 100% the same. It's going to be like a different version of it, like to match the film's energy. I think it works really well.
And it kind of makes sense because Robbie's last album, so his last album was an album where he basically, over an hour long, he basically re-recorded every hit song, all of the favorite album tracks by his fans, a few of the covers he did as B-sides. He's re-recorded it all and put it out. Apologies, as an album. And it's more it's got orchestras and stuff on it. It's way more sort of like grandiose, and I think the soundtrack in this film is more grandiose than what the songs were originally. Not that they're better, but because they are of a moment in time, the originals. But from an elder statesman of the music industry and someone with that much royalty and fame in the industry, it's nice to kind of hear that regal sound on them. It's really nice.
And actually, I'm just reading up now. He's scored a number one album, and this Better Man album has gone to number one.
That's good. Oh yes, and it's increased his record because he's got more number one albums than Elvis, and I think Elvis had the top spot, wasn't it? In the UK, and now he already had that record, so he's just increased it again.
15 number one albums, and on par with the Beatles now.
I was on par with the Beatles. Okay.
That's really cool, and I think it deserves to go to number one, like because it's the greatest hits done in a really, really good way, kind of thing. And all the bangers are in this film, and it was really nice to hear them done, in a very different way with the emotional visuals going on in the acting, because there are really a couple of scenes that are heart wrenching for me. I felt, of course, you're going to use that song in that way. Angels wasn't used because it's very cliche to use Angels in the heart, but I think it was She's the One they used like really well. Like
She's the One was amazing, and the fact it was it's probably the most different to the original as well, and it's a duet, and
and it worked for
again the female part of the duet I don't think was sung by the actual actress. I think she was miming as well.
someone
so.
called Kaylee McKnight. I don't know.
Yeah, was that the singer? Because I don't think it was the same as the actress. I might be wrong, but I saw a video with Adam singing it with the singer, and I don't think it was the same person who played
Yeah.
the character. But I like the fact that they're happy to do that, because like so many, it's a bit like when you look at like Walk the Line, and this is going to come up later.
Yeah.
The next film, when you look at those biopics, I do sit there and think, why did the actor have to? I appreciate the effort they've gone through for this, but why not get someone who is better at the job to do it and they can mime it? I really don't need to hear an actor singing it. I don't care. I want the best quality products from this, and give me that, because you can give me it. So kind of like, I like the fact they've done it. It's, to me, I'd rather just have like more sound alike, better quality music from a music biopic. If that means sacrificing the fact that the actor's singing, because the actor doesn't need to.
Yeah, it's got to hit the chord. The music, it's got to hit that. Got to hit the, making sure that you tell a great story, but it's got to nail the music.
Yeah.
If you don't nail the music, then you're kind of like lost. But I think this one does it, and I enjoyed it. I think a lot of people can enjoy it. And I think you got to make sure don't worry about the CGI ape thing, and don't worry about the because it's Greatest Showman. It's Moulin Rouge. It's like Baz Luhrmann has come in. Like I recently watched the Elvis one that he did.
Yeah,
that's
quite good.
The Baz Luhrmann one, which I'm really gutted, because I think you asked me to come see it with you in the cinema, but I think I was busy that day, or I couldn't do it.
You were busy. You were going out for dinner somewhere, I remember.
I'm so annoyed. Because that one was been perfect to watch in the cinema.
But that's the kind of film that will get replayed in cinemas, because anniversaries will come up for him, for Elvis, for records, for his death, his birth. You can still see it properly.
Yeah, I really wish I saw that, but because I think it's got really good energy, this one, and there are some like trophy parts to it, but at the same time, you can't have a biopic without some trophy parts to it. It's a movie, but I think they kind of like, I think the big experimental, like crazy or surreal vibe, I think outshines the cheesy, cringy.
Yeah, and let's be real, him being played by an ape is probably better than him being played by an actor, which is probably something we're going to talk about in a bit as well, because we don't get the distraction of seeing the actor do it. You're not thinking, oh, how is the actor going to portray this? Has he got the mannerisms? Because the monkey's just got them.
Exactly.
It's CGI.
And it works on different layers as well. It's like, if you don't know anything about Robin Williams, it just works as a great movie about a Planet of the Apes spin-off about an ape who becomes a pop star.
There are some seasonal elements going on.
It's like,
a little bit every now and again.
Exactly. If you rebrand this as a Planet of the Apes spin-off, works as well. Rebrand this, as a Robin Williams thing, it works. So I think it's a standout. I don't know whether or not it'll be a classic, but I definitely think it's going to be something that was tried to be a game changer, in the sense that you can have biopics that really go left field and still work. And I can't think of many biopics that do that. I think you mentioned the Bob Dylan one played by multiple actors, so possibly could be in the same category, something really radically different.
There's 3 radically different ones that I always think of. I think it's called Miles Ahead, I think. Anyway, it's the Miles Davis one, which basically is flashback sequences to him recording an album called Kind of Blue, which is kind of like his classic big album. But the rest of the film is someone's stolen his mastering tapes for his next album. Ewan McGregor plays a Rolling Stone reporter, and basically it ends up becoming a buddy cop drama or buddy cop comedy, where they're chasing down the guys who have stolen the tapes, the 2 of them, in a car and things. It's brilliant. You've got Love and Mercy, which is the Brian Wilson one from Beach Boys, which is it basically covers him in the 80s, which is when he was at his worst in his life, really. He was struggling and being controlled by his manager, etc. But it's when he met his wife, and his wife fought a legal case for him, effectively, to get him away from his manager, and basically lose the control and regain his mental health again. So that's really cool, and it's interspersed with flashback scenes to him recording Pet Sounds, which is their classic album. So that kind of works as a way of doing something. Obviously, Miles Davis one's fictional, but with Brian Wilson, it's all real. And then I'm Not There, the Bob Dylan one, is 6 different actors all playing Bob Dylan. Some of them they basically each play a different part of Bob Dylan's personality. Some of them play that part of the personality more as a portrayal of Bob Dylan, as in it looks like Bob, it acts like Bob,
Yeah,
it is Bob. Whilst others, it's like, you know, there's Richard Gere basically plays like an outlaw sheriff type person in the Wild West. And it's kind of like, well, that's nothing to do with Bob Dylan, but it's a part of his personality they're trying to portray. It's an art house film, but it is good. I guess that kind of leads on.
Yeah, I thought this is an art house film, but just done in a very like big overblown way.
It's art house for the masses, I think.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Like,
And I think I'm happy that they did it. And unfortunately, yeah, it's not doing well. Like it's actually the 2025's first biggest flop, unfortunately. 100 million is only made like 16, and that's open. So this was co-financed and co-made in Australia. So I'm thinking, okay, so we must be big in Australia, but it's already open in Australia. They didn't do like too well there either.
I think this is what's disappointing me is like a film like The Greatest Showman, say, comes out and everybody's mum goes and watches that, right?
Yeah.
Now, everybody's mum at the moment in the UK between the age of 40 and 60, and even a bit older, they were young when Robbie Williams was big and they were buying the records. That's the age group that were buying the records. None of them are turning out for this, which I find really odd, because they all went to watch the Queen one. They all went to watch all the others. And why aren't they turning out for this? I find it really bizarre and weird.
For it, there were a couple of there was like 4 people in the audience.
Yeah,
more than the Dylan when we had to see Complete Unknown.
Yeah.
I saw the age ranges were like, oh yeah, these are like middle age, like people that would have liked to take that growing up.
Yeah,
and Robbie Williams have followed, but then again, it was like an afternoon show, like a weekdays. This come
out. If we went 2 hours later, because we went at like 5:20 showing. So if we went 2 hours later, it might have been a different story. But at the same time, the numbers are showing they're not going. That's the thing. It's even in the UK, this is flopping.
Yeah,
it should make more than 60 million here.
Yeah, and it had to. I think this is something that's going to be doing well on television when it comes out on streaming and Christmas.
It screams UK Netflix. This one today.
Yeah.
It screams UK Netflix.
Number one there, and I think it's gonna. I think maybe out of left field and people like adjusting to it, but I think this just has staying power, and I think this one over time, this is going to be something that people look at, and I think show more appreciation to.
Yeah.
And it will grow, and hopefully, I hope like big studios don't like to see this, and I was like, all right, when we do our biopic, we have to go the straight and narrow now, because I don't want people to do that. I want people to do like maybe not 100 million with CGI, stuff like that, but maybe like you can do something different with a biopic, because the Michael Jackson one's coming out. We were chatting about this the other day.
Yeah.
The final part of that would have been really different if they stuck with it. So I'm hoping they don't.
These biopics tend to present artists in a good light, and I think the Michael Jackson one was prepared to, by the end of the film, not present him in the best light. I think it would have resolved, and it would have made him look good by the end. But
if it goes straight and narrow, and I'm like,
people would have left the cinema thinking, "Oh, I'm not too comfortable about that." Which is kind of what you want. You want to be challenged, right?
Yeah, definitely. Do something different if you're going to doing Michael Jackson again. But for Robbie Williams, this is like for the first biopic. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's there's a lot of basic things, and you might take a while for you to adjust, but after you're with it, you're like, I'm swept away with the ride. Like take me, man. I'm enjoying this. This is really, really fun.
Yeah.
So and I think I recommend it to people who are fans of Robbie Williams.
Oh yeah.
Who aren't. I think that whoever played that Gary Barlow in this is like took the substance and got close, because that was like perfect Gary Barlow right there.
It was the thing is, he didn't look much like him, but the mannerisms of Gary Barlow were just there. I was like, oh my word!
But really, really good. And I think it's good. And I think I'm hoping it like the Bob Dylan one we'll chat about in a minute. I hope it brings a new generation to Robbie Williams and take that and boy bands and that history, because it's really interesting. I recommend the BBC documentary, the boy band one, the 3-part one.
That's good.
As well as the Netflix for Robbie Williams. But I hope it does bring a new generation to Robbie Williams, which I think obviously is always they try to do that. The Dylan one definitely is trying to do that. But I think and I hope people can enjoy it and see it. But go and see it. I recommend it. I'll give it 4 tries out of 5 for my rating.
I think I'd put it down as a 4. I think between a 3.5 and a 4. I think that's what I put on Letterboxd. So
I recommend it. So that was Better Man then. So I recommend it. Go and see it. It's still out. It's still playing. Maybe it's a slow burn. It's a slow month, January. So if you haven't seen it yet, go and see it. And yeah, I think definitely will recommend this on the big screen,
Mm.
um, as well. Okay, Better Man. So then that leads us to maybe the opposite spectrum with A Complete Unknown.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Complete Unknown, biopic of Bob Dylan. Um, charts his rise going to New York. And then, well, I'm going to leave it to Dan if that's okay, because I think I don't know much about Bob Dylan, but you are the perfect person to speak to about this, which is why I got you on. Dan, would you mind just giving a synopsis of A Complete?
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to explain who Bob Dylan is. Just legendary folk and legendary rock singer, songwriter, one of the greatest writers of all time. I think everyone knows who he is. The film, though, sets up Bob moving to New York in 1961, and it runs through until 1965, just up to a few months before the release of Highway 61 Revisited. So we're looking at we're looking at him moving to New York and up until the first Newport Folk Festival where he played Electric. So it's a 4-year period. The film does basically sets it up as 2 acts where there's 1961 and 1965. 1961 technically covers 1961 through to about 1964. So it does actually cover
Yeah,
a 4 years period there, and then it kind of smashes you in with a big. It is literally a bang in the film where it goes bang, and it's 1965, sort of a jump cut, and that's kind of when the film sort of properly takes off again. Funny old film, this one, because for those who know the story, there aren't too many biopic tropes in Dylan's story, and I found the film to have actually a lot less of the tropes than others. I think the tropes that were in there almost at times felt a bit forced, as if they had to be there. The film didn't delve too much into personal troubles with him either. It kind of just showed it and then dealt with it. There was no sort of emotional toll on Dylan that was really shown. He kind of, like, you could tell he was a bit upset about something that kind of moved on.
I was confused a lot of the time, and thankfully, we had an empty cinema, so you could explain it to me, and I even asked you afterwards. I was very confused at times. I was like, well, okay, why is he doing that kind of thing? What's going on? They didn't really explain too much, like some of the with the love triangle kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just like it just happens, and I'm like, okay, it's like someone who doesn't know much about Bob Dylan's life. I didn't understand why he would be flip-flopping and changing his mind and things like that. You will know because you're well versed, but I don't think it explained that. Maybe that was the point, like just to go a tumultuous world.
This is a criticism of the film that's being bandied around a lot, is that you almost need to have some prior knowledge of Bob Dylan to kind of know what's going on. But it's because I think the film, to be honest, I think the film didn't have much room to breathe with the story it was trying to portray, because also there isn't much of a story. The problem with Bob Dylan is that there's no kind of point where he's come back from adversity during that period. The film basically cuts him off halfway through his rise. He hasn't even peaked. So it's kind of like,
thinking about that. Yeah, he's kind of like a. I mean, I think Timothy did a really great job, but I think he's just kind of there, and he's just kind of like, a stoic figure that's like, doesn't like have a lot of. I don't know if that was the point. Like, how do I explain it? He's just there. He's like one character. He's got this voice. He's got this look. He's kind of swans around every scene he's in and every like scenario. But there's no like we don't see behind like a mask or a facade kind of thing. It's
so
like
this is the big thing with the film. This is the thing with the film, because I looked at it this way. So the film stops basically halfway through his rise. He hadn't yet become the legendary rock star. He hadn't done his 65 tour of the UK. He hadn't done any of this stuff he's basically him winning in life. A lot of that hadn't been done yet. It's not like when you're watching Bohemian Rhapsody where Freddie has to fall and pick himself back up again. Bob hasn't done that, and that's why it felt a bit forced. Everything to do with, I think, forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I think it's Suze Rotolo, which is his girlfriend. Dylan himself actually insisted that they changed her name in the film. It's the only thing that's not there's a lot of inaccuracies in the film, but it's the only thing that we know is deliberately inaccurate, because other things are left a mystery. Again, Bob still calls it her Suze throughout the whole film, simply because the shortening of the name they changed it to is also Suze. Like, it doesn't really make a difference. But I think a lot of the stuff with that was forced. I don't necessarily think she was still around by the end of the film when the film ends with him. I don't think that she was even near him. I think they kind of had parted for a long time. I think a lot of that was kind of forced, and therefore plot device. Whilst if you took the film if you made it a 3-hour film and just had it go from 61 through to 76, you then got the typical biopic tropes can all be fit in with a bit of room, if you want to have those tropes, that is. Obviously, he split up with Sarah Dillon, kind of the love of his life. Again, he didn't really treat her well, from what I can tell. But he split up with her. He did win her back in 76 for a period of time. If you cut it there, you've got the win, and you've got the kind of the hero's story there kind of thing.
Whereas this one kind of like
this doesn't do that.
Very mysterious. I actually don't know what's going through your head right now. I don't know anything about your character, your soul. I know that you're a very talented songwriter. I know that you are, amazing at, what you're doing, but I don't see any soul, and I don't know whether or not that was a conscious decision to do that, or like I don't know anything about you, and you're doing stuff, and I don't know the reasoning behind you making these decisions.
I think that's a conscious decision, though, because I think with Bob Dylan, his whole life has basically. They say Bob Dylan's the character, the actor is Robert Zimmerman. There is that, and his whole life is he's basically fed false news to the media, to the fans, to everyone. He's basically created this aura. And like that's what this film. I mean, Bob is heavily involved in the film. Apparently, Bob insisted on certain scenes and things that weren't true that he wanted to be in the film. Deliberately, Bob has also hired actors to play people who weren't in places for documentaries he's done. So Sharon Stone apparently was on the Rolling Thunder review with him in the 70s, which Sharon Stone would have been a child. Like, no, she wasn't. She was not there. So, like, there's obvious deception going on. And he knows it's obvious because he wants it to be obvious, because he wants you to keep wondering and thinking about it. So that's the point. The film focuses on the myth rather than the true story, which, again, how are you going to get the true story if the guy has cultivated a myth around himself? The only people you can get that from,
unless it's like the revelation of I'm finally going to tell you the truth.
Or there's or you go to all the people who are involved with him, many of whom would want to protect him because they have good relationships with him and are his friends, and he's treated them well in life. And those who haven't treated them well are more likely to make up some slanderous stuff that might not be true, which feeds the myth anyway. So it's kind of like, how are you going to get that true story? So you were never going to get that in this film, which is why I'm Not There, the 2006 biopic about him, took such a different route, because they knew that wasn't going to be the case. So that's what's interesting about the film, is that it is more the myth than. I will recommend, and I've got it here in front of me, this book here, Bob Dylan Chronicles. If you like the period it's set in, this is worth reading, because this is his autobiography. It's volume 1. Volume 2's never come out. It's been over 20 years. It's not coming. It's not happening. But this, again, in true Bob Dylan fashion, he can't do this normally. His autobiography is set in 3 different time periods. There's 1961. There is 1971 or 71, around then. And then there's 1987. There's 3 acts to this book, and that's all he talks about is those 3 years. He makes up a load of stuff that's not true. He goes off on tangents. He makes up this whole thing about how he was driving down a road and ended up having a talk with a gas station owner about, like, life's big questions, and that never happened. Obviously, we can tell that probably never happened. But the 61 period part, from what I can tell, is quite accurate. Derek Haylock, I think, is his name Derek Haylock? Or something like, no, who am I thinking of? It might, anyway, top Dylan author. He is. I've seen him be Q&A'd before. This guy, like, he's a great Dylan author. I've read a few of his books. He says that the 61 part is probably the most accurate. I think that's what he said. Forgive me if I'm misquoting. But he does say there's also a lot of inaccuracies in this book. But if you like the period, well worth reading. There are characters in this which are visually in the film who don't even get a name drop. but they are in it and you can see them. So this is probably the best companion piece to the film if you want to. So that's why I've got that here, because I wanted to mention it, because it is definitely a central reading for if you're into Dylan and you like the period. But yeah, what did you think of Timothy? Timothy Chalamet.
I thought he did really well. He definitely is a method actor, and he took it on the role really well. As someone who, I thought he did. Yeah, he looked the part. I thought he sounded the part, whether or not he was all of them him. I think definitely, like, he just looked like, you know what, this is probably the best Dylan has ever looked on screen played by someone.
Oh, I don't know. Kate Blanchett's a good one.
I need to see that one. That sounds amazing, by the way.
She is good.
I thought this is like, I think it looks really, it looks the part.
Yeah.
And I think overall, just like, I guess it's called a complete unknown, because again, he's a myth and we don't know anything about him still after this film. I'm intrigued to know more. As someone who doesn't know anything about Dylan and just knows a couple of songs, it was a really like I enjoyed it because it was actually a very interesting introduction to him. And I think that it just goes from one scenario to another, and he just kind of does this, things are happening. And it kind of smooths and coasts over things, but he did enough so if you want to research that, look, this is what could happen, and so go off on your own and do it. I think it definitely does that. I'm definitely more interested in him from this, and I guess so. I've got to praise the film for didn't bore me in any
It's
respect.
not a bad film in any way.
No.
It isn't a bad film. There's nothing wrong with it.
It introduced me to the things that he was doing. That his I knew of his songs, but when I saw this film, and because you can spend time with the lyrics and the music and stuff, and it just shone that actually he is an amazing songwriter. And I think it just, that introduction to even the folk music and all that, wow, actually I can actually sit and listen to this music and just vibe with it and spend time with it, and I actually appreciate it. So I think one of the best things that I take away from this film is it did get me interested in him and music, and Joan's music as well.
And Joan Baez is huge in the film.
So I think for that, I think I've got to praise it. Now, whether or not the film, obviously there's issues with it, but I think for me, I take some positive stuff from there, and I think, what, fine. I enjoyed the vibe it did, and what it was.
It's a better film than it's not a better film, if that makes sense, but it's not spectacular.
Now, obviously, for you coming from the background of history, then you're going to be more critical.
I won't judge. I won't judge. You know me. I'm not going to judge a music biopic based on my knowledge of an artist or based on inaccuracies and things like that. It is a dramatized version. It is allowed to do what it does. I'm never going to judge it for that. I will say I watched an interview with Timothy Chalamet and Nerdwar, right? And Nerdwar was interviewing him, and Timothy, in every interview he's doing, he is flexing deep cuts Bob Dylan lore. He is flexing the thing, because he started prepping in 2018-19. He was on the set of June, and he was practicing in his breaks his guitar and singing like Bob Dylan. There's videos of him doing it in his costumes, because he was prepping for this role, because this film was kind of announced in 2020, already sort of being prepped for. Timothy knew he had the role early, so he was already learning. It was meant to come out a lot earlier than it did, and I think that's the thing. I think the one criticism you can have of it is that Timothy's probably, because Timothy's actually, he plays it really well. It's actually a really good performance, but I think he's too big of a star for the film, if that makes sense, as in to the point when I was a bit distracted by the fact it was him. And this is what the monkey works in Better Man. It's you don't get distracted by the actor. There's a few little
come
bits
out earlier. Because from 2020 to now, he's
pre-June. It would have been brilliant, pre-June, but. So he's kind of, I mean, it's a great coup for the film, the fact that he's had such a career boost since, but I like the fact he's taken on the role. I like the fact he's taken to learn about Bob rather than just figure out how to play him, and he is into his real deep cuts, and he's been buying loads of Bob Dylan bootleg records and things like that, just to hear all the stuff that no one else hears. You want to hear the stuff that's from the shows that weren't meant to be recorded and things, so he's been doing a lot of that.
I think he did really well.
I
think he did well. I think Ed Norton did really well.
Ed, he's the standout performance probably of the whole thing.
it was originally going to be Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm reading,
Was
but he had
it?
to drop out. Yeah, for scheduling issues, he had to drop out. Which he would have been good as well, I think.
Yeah. But I mean, I can't imagine anyone other than Edward Norton playing Pete Seeger.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
don't
thing.
know
'Cause-
who it is, but I think but for after seeing it and saying, "Oh yeah, I
yeah.
can see the resemblances there," and
Yeah.
I think it was amazing. I think who for me like someone who really stood out was Boyd Holbrook, who played Johnny Cash in this.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, like who's this person? Like
Because
this
we were a little bit thinking it would have been great if Joaquin could have reprised
Joaquin
the
was
role.
finished.
And because it's not a big role, it wouldn't have taken him much time. It wouldn't take much time out of the year. He could have done it whilst doing Joker as well. It
Yeah,
wouldn't have
but
done
is it
much,
like
but
younger in here? Like he's
yeah. So,
younger
well,
aspect of it,
but this is the thing with makeup. I reckon you could. But the thing is, this is what's odd. When you're far away from the Johnny Cash guy and looking at him far away, he looks quite old. But when you got up close, when it went up close to him whilst
yeah,
he was on the
true,
stage, he looked a lot younger, which was a bit
yeah,
weird. Because I
yeah,
turned to you and said, he's way too old. And then actually on the
yeah,
stage, he looks really young. So I was
yeah.
like, oh, okay.
But
I
I
mean, to be
think
honest, I mean, Johnny Cash would have been in his late 20s, early 30s, even at the time. Actually, he might have been in his mid 30s by then, to be
yeah,
honest. He wasn't young.
yeah.
So, yeah,
But that
I
would have
mean,
been awesome if it was Joaquin Phoenix, because then it links into obviously the director of this
yeah.
line, which I loved, and I would have been really good, like you know, crossing over of the same
Yeah,
universe.
it
I
would
was
have just
thinking,
been a
like, oh
nice little Easter egg, wouldn't it?
yeah, it's just like this is Bob Dylan and this biopic, and then this is Johnny Cash's one mixed together. You can do a back-to-back screening
Yeah.
of it. It'll be really
So
nice.
the attention to detail in this film is spectacular to the point when obviously people have praised the costumes because there's a mixture of vintage and recreations. Obviously, because they can't find all the vintage stuff to match,
Yeah.
so they have to do some things recreated. But as much as they could, it was all vintage, vintage props, etc. But also the attention to detail when it comes to the music's there, and it's something I discovered this morning. So I will unbox it here. I've got the soundtrack album
So
has
I'm not
arrived.
gonna say because, like, obviously, like I picked Dan because he's got massive musical knowledge, loves
Yeah.
Dylan, got like pretty
So
much everything in the soundtrack. But just
I've got
today,
every
while we
album,
were
yeah.
filming, yeah, you managed to the soundtrack
It's
for this
arrived.
also is really good. And I thought, I know you messaged me
Yeah.
yesterday thinking I don't know if I should get it. I thought, you know what? I thought the renditions were great in this film, and I think
They
it's a really
were.
good collectible to have. So, so yeah, go for it.
So I'm
You got
taking
it.
it out. So the reason why I'm doing this now is because I want to say nothing on this record is in the film. Just so you know. So it turns out everything in the film is recorded live on set.
Right. Okay.
Which was a decision they made after recording this, as far as I'm aware, simply because they needed this for backup in case they couldn't get it. Apparently, they use a lot of vintage equipment, vintage microphones, restored period piece recording equipment. So it does actually sound a bit, and that's why in the film it does sound a bit rustic at times, especially the live performances with the full band. They sound a bit kind of like lost. Like there's a lot of like EQ issues and things like that because obviously the sound bleed from that day on set was ridiculously high because the crowd have to make a lot of noise for that scene, etc. So it kind of, if anything, you feel more like you're there because actually you're getting a more authentic sound. So none of the stuff on here is actually in the film. This is all studio recorded by Timothy doing his Bob Dylan impersonation. And also, you know, Edward Norton's on this, and every other, you know, Boyd Holbrook is on it, Monica Barbera's on it. So all the people who sing and act in the film are on this. They had all recorded it already, but again, none of it's used as a product. You know,
I think it looks great. Yeah,
I think it does
really
look quite good. I will say this is something I did feel there is a vibe of Lockdown Billy Joe Armstrong in Timothy's look for a lot of it.
I can see it now.
There is a bit of that.
I mean, he would be great if they do a biopic
if they
on
do
him.
a Green Day one,
Yeah,
he'd be great
too.
to play him. As a product, though, yeah, obviously this is a homage to the times they are a changing album cover. There's loads of nice pictures on the back of the film. You've got all the tracks. The tracks, you know what? There's some really good tracks.
Can I make you just full screen, just you? Can I do it on this?
I think so. Yeah, you can. You can full screen on someone. You full screen yourself, but you can full screen. That's a bit up close there, isn't it? You can see that
now. No. How do I full screen you?
Well, I mean, that's quite a good image for you. I think they can see that. Actually, the fact that it's also not reversed is quite nice as well. which is good. So yeah, that's kind of
That's
the
really cool.
product itself. There is an insert in here for those who are into collectibles and things. There is an actual insert with two
Oh, there you go.
lovely pictures. Oh, nice! I'm on there.
Hey,
Two nice pictures of
that's cool.
Timothée Chalamet, and obviously you get more on the sleeve of the vinyl as well, and it is on a solid red as well. It's on a solid red
Oh,
vinyl as
nice.
well. So it's a nice little product. I'm going to put it into the Dylan section. I'm not going to have Chalamet in his own little place. He will go in with the Dylan albums in the collection. So when it's stored, but I think it was good to show that whilst talking about the music, because it is all live. It's all live in the film. None of those, the recordings in the film aren't on that record. So the soundtrack is completely different, which is why they put the soundtrack album out as like an additional product. Obviously they would do it anyway, but it's more of an additional product with this film, just simply because it's not, it's not on the actual nothing on that record is in the film.
Yeah,
So
but I think it's a really good, like, if you're a Dylan collector and fan, and like, I think it's like, I don't know why Red though. Red doesn't scream like Dylan to me.
Well, I don't know why this is on a colour vinyl. I think it's on a colour vinyl more to justify charging £30 for it rather than charging 25 penny. And also at the same time, I think it's on a colour vinyl as well to make people want to buy it, because let's be real, it's a tough sale to sell to people. The people who are going to want this are going to be Bob Dylan fans. It's a tough sale to sell them someone else singing Bob Dylan. There's an element of karaoke to this, because he doesn't exactly sound alike. It's not the best Dylan sound alike I've heard in the world. It's kind of like he's kind of treading the line to not impersonate and parody. Bob Dylan's got one of those voices that's parodied by everyone, so it's kind of like put it this way, he tries to do an accurate portrayal of Bob's voice, but at the same time it does still sound like Timothée Chalamet is singing Bob Dylan. So it's going to be one that I probably listen to once and have it in my collection, to be honest. I don't normally spend that much on a record. I try and do it on a budget, but I thought for this I'd treat myself, especially because we're doing this podcast and things. I thought, let's just do it. So yeah, that's the product that comes with it. But
I think it's good, and it's a nice companion piece to it. And I think it'll be a nice little collection. I think I'm just looking at the stats right now. The movie's doing very well.
Yeah,
it's made its budget back. It's been out.
Wow,
not too long.
That's good.
And hasn't opened in other territories yet.
It opened here late. We've seen it quite late. Like, it's been open in America for a bit, hasn't it?
December in America. December it came out in America, and it's doing well. People are praising Timothée Chalamet. I think the vibe is really good. I think for an introduction to Bob Dylan, I think it's like, for me and for a new generation of people, I think he's just perfectly done for the TikTok generation.
Oh yeah,
it's perfect. Now, obviously, Dylan's joined TikTok recently as well, because it's got Timothée Chalamet. It's like, I think the vibes and, like, the folk time of music is very refreshing to hear in this mainstream, like with the younger generation. And I think definitely with their political stance, which is what's going on around in the world, is perfectly set up. Like, time it goes around again. Some of the songs in the film, I can't remember.
It's come up at the right time, especially with the Trump administration coming back in and things. It's come up at the right time.
And this movie's doing really well in America. Like it's making the most over there. But it's such a it's a perfect kind of film to come out, and but this is the vibe, and the 60s vibe is just it's really vintage. It's really well done.
I think as a good, if you've watched this and enjoyed it, I think Inside Llewellyn Davis, is it called, is a good film to go and watch as well, because that's about the Greenwich folk scene. There is a Bob Dylan cameo in it, which I'm sorry to spoil, but for a Dylan fan, that might persuade you to watch it. That's why I'm saying it. It's a very small cameo. He doesn't speak, don't worry. It's not like part of the story. It's just you see it. It's like an Easter egg. But the film is about a Greenwich folk singer, similar to Bob Dylan, but this one was a bit washed up. And it's about the whole scene. I think it portrays the scene better than this film, because I think that's where this film didn't quite portray the scene, as in you didn't kind of see what the Greenwich folk the Greenwich Village folk scene was actually like. I think there's a lot more they could have done there. And to be honest, they could have set the whole film there and really delved into it and created, like, it's Bob Dylan. The story doesn't have to be that truthful as well, because you're going to portray the myth. So why not? Why not make a sort of a fictional story about him in that period with accuracies, but also a lot of inaccuracies? Would have been quite nice thing to see. But I think Inside Llewellyn Davies really portrays that scene better. So it's worth watching them as a 2-part, really. I think they work really well together. That's Coen Brothers film as well, so you got to guarantee to see the quality on it.
Is that with Oscar Isaac?
It is Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, I think that has been on my radar for quite a while, actually. So I will check it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, problems aside, I think this movie did well with what it was trying to do, and it could always, could have done some things differently here and there. But I think, like, for me, like, I take from it the positives, like, introduced me to that like Bob Dylan, the music, what his lyrics and his songwriting, and some of the things that we're going through that time period. And I think, I think it's like a nice little snapshot of history. Might be perfect, but it's like, it's like reading a couple of pages of an encyclopedia of music, and you'll see a little bit. And then I thought, okay, interesting. Let me read more. And I think this is a really big bounce into more of his stuff. Is more of his stuff like later on.
That's what they said on the Word of Your Ear podcast. I think they said, forgive me if I'm wrong if they didn't, but I think they said that it's a film about Bob Dylan's Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
It's basically it. But that's kind of like, it's what it needs to be. Because it is about introducing new people to Bob, and not that he really needs introducing. Like, his fan base. His fan base is such a huge range. Like, it's ridiculous. But and
it's cool that he's still alive as well. Considering
still rocking at like 83 years old.
I know, and it's really good that he had input on this. I'd rather much prefer that he's still alive when they did this, rather than whenever if it was past his time. And it would have been like but I think it's good that he's in there, because I don't know creative input and all that as well.
He did, as far as I'm aware.
It's good to have that. So I recommend this one. I recommend it if you're definitely a newcomer to it and don't know anything about it. I think it's really good way to like get yourself but it does have the tropes. It does have a little bit of, I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do that.
But then there's a few ones where you go, hang on, but why hasn't he done that? Because the trope isn't there as well. Because it's just not part. You can't force that into the Bob Dylan story, because he hasn't got that rise in the same way some of these other artists do. It's not a paint by numbers. You can't paint by numbers his life. So there is that as well.
Just like the Better Man, it just kind of ends. It isn't on the complete story from beginning to end. It kind of, I like the fact it just stops. And you're like, okay, so there's more to his life, and that's it.
Well, they've left it open for a sequel. I mean, Timothy's already already kind of hinted that, like, we can do another one if this one goes well. He has already said that, which I don't know if is actually in the pipeline or if he's just saying that to drum up interest and get people to watch the film. But to be honest, it would make some sense, because you've not seen. Because
there's a lot more. I imagine.
There's a lot more. And what comes up is where the real drama happens. Like the drama that was in this film, there's way more drama in his life that comes up. To be honest, the next film will be where all those tropes are, if that makes sense. This film stops before they come in, really. It tried to force a couple by maybe making bigger deals about things that weren't that bigger deals in his life, I think. But
if you want to do another one, I think
if you want to do the paint by numbers side of it as best you can, they need to go on another 4 or 5 years in his life at least. So hopefully we might see it and just see what happens.
But to have a sequel to a biopic.
You don't get sequels to biopics either, so it would be an interesting thing to see.
I think, and do it straight away. So then we can have an extended 4-hour cut of the whole thing. That'd be really good. But I recommend it. I think I gave it 3.5 tries. Only because a couple of the trophy bits, and whereas I gave Better Man more because at least it just had the balls to do something. Really
I enjoyed Better Man more as a film. Better Man was a better film overall. So
so I give it 4.5 tries, which is that's fine. So it's a great watch. Yourself?
I put it this way: if I had 4-star on Better Man, I had 3-star on A Complete Unknown. So and also 3-star for me is a good film that I always think 3-star is a good film that I've enjoyed, but I probably wouldn't go back to it again for a long time, if that makes sense.
It does. It's fine.
Whilst once you get to 3.5 star is kind of like, that's like, you know, 3.5 stars kind of like classic film level. So it's like, this is like, okay, this is a classic, but it's not my favorite classic, if that makes sense to me. So that's when it starts getting closer to so that's how I view it.
Yeah, I'll
So I'm
definitely
always a bit harsher, but I think my ratings mean the same as yours, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think 4 stars is like, for me that's that's one I will love, and 5 is that's like one of my all time.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah, but I recommend it. Go and see it, whether or not
Yeah.
you're a Dylan fan or not. I think it's a good watch.
Yeah.
We watched the IMAX, and I don't. Yeah, I mean the sound was amazing in IMAX.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't need to be an IMAX watch. Like
No.
Better Man definitely excels on a big screen, but here
Yeah.
it's definitely a casual like Netflix Sunday afternoon. Amazon
Yeah,
Prime.
it's going to be on Disney Plus very soon because it's a searchlight, so it will be on Disney Plus at some point. It will go to the masses, and people can watch it there if they don't get to see it in the cinema. It isn't needed in the cinema. You don't need to see it in the cinema. I don't want to say that really, because I want to encourage people to use the cinemas, because otherwise we'll lose them. But you know, as a film, there are better films to go and see in the cinema. So I'd say go see something else and then watch that when it's on streaming. I think it probably be the case.
And if it's like a cheap, you know, matinee, like cheap showing, go and see it. I think it's pretty cool. It's really good. Yeah, I definitely go and see it.
Yeah,
amazing. So that was our 2 musical biopics, and actually I'm just reading up it now. It's done. It's doing really well. It's actually overtaken a couple of other biopics.
Nice.
In the financially. So it's actually one of the best performing biopics of recent years.
That's good.
Apart from the Freddie Mercury one.
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody. But that's doing well. And I think it's got loads of legs. If it's made its budget already, and it's been out for 3, 4 1 week in England, in the UK, and a couple of weeks in America. So it's gonna do well.
Now they're just kind of making back the promotion money, and then whatever's left is a profit. It's going to drum up interest for the Springsteen biopic coming later in the year as well. It's going to help drum up interest for that. So,
so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, just by nature of the artists being so closely linked to each other by music fans and things, and the people who go and see this will probably go and see that as well. So it's going to drum up a load of interest, which helps that film, which we like, and that's going to be supposedly be a biopic that is a bit different and does have a bit of guts to it to actually do something different as well. So that'll be a nice one. Hopefully that will do well, because it can pave the way for non-expensive biopics that do something with a little bit of intrepidation.
There's a couple coming out. Obviously there's the Michael Jackson one coming out as well this year, and then there is, I'm just having a look now, what else have we got coming up? Talking about biopics, one of the worst ones I saw was that Amy Winehouse one.
I haven't even bothered. I mean, I'm not an Amy Winehouse fan really, so I'm not going to watch it just because I'm not interested in it.
So for fans, for non-fans, that was awful. There is Rocket Man we saw, that was really good.
Yeah, Rocket Man was
good.
There's
a Billy Joel one coming called Piano Man.
Oh, because he's in my top 5. He would be number 5 in my artists, I think. So
There's a Billy Joel one coming up. There is
the 4-part Beatles one.
The 4-part one's coming, 4 interconnected, 2027. There's also a John Lennon and Yoko Ono biopic thing coming up too.
That screams like A24 arty type thing. To me.
This promises to be showing full a lot of controversial stuff, which will be good.
There was a lot of controversial stuff in that story, so
so I'm hoping they go all out. There's a Keith Moon one coming up.
Keith Moon
one coming up.
Interesting to pick the drummer.
Boy George one, a Bee Gees one, and a Grateful Dead one by Martin Scorsese.
That might be a documentary though, potentially. I wouldn't surprise me if he's directing a documentary about them.
Biopic, but
is it?
Yeah, it says it's a biopic.
Oh, that's interesting, because that's gonna. I guess. I mean, Scorsese is one of those people who.
It's not a documentary. He's doing a full-fledged biopic.
Is he? Wow. Okay. Because obviously his music documentaries are they are creme de la creme. They are the top drawer. His direction of concert films as well are brilliant. I don't think he's done a biopic though on a musician before, which is interesting. But you know, I mean, obviously the name is going to help it, but it's his name that's going to help this film, because the Grateful Dead, massive band, loads of fans, but the general public ain't they don't know what they're about. So that'll be quite interesting to see how well that does and how much budget
Yeah,
they're willing to risk on it as well.
exactly.
Because
Yeah,
I mean, in the US it'll do quite well because there's enough like Grateful Dead fans out there, but
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like elsewhere in the world it might struggle quite a fair amount.
Yeah,
But
there's
we'll see.
there's a Kiss one coming out as
That would
well.
make
Janis
that
Joplin
makes
one.
sense. Janis
Janis,
Joplin.
Joplin.
Janis Joplin surprises me there ain't been one. It surprises me
Yeah,
they haven't tried to do it yet.
yeah. I don't know. This is it follows the singer's final days before her death.
Yeah.
There's a Frank Sinatra one. There, we saw a trailer for a Led Zeppelin documentary.
Yeah.
This.
Yeah.
Fred Astaire. There's quite a few. Sublime, Bee Gees. Yeah. Okay. So that's coming up in the next year or two, including the Michael Jackson one. So
yeah, with Jafar Jackson playing him as well as his nephew.
Yeah, that'll be an intro. I've seen a lot of Michael Jackson stuff, and not all of them.
See, I haven't. See, because most of it's all TV movies, isn't it? And TV shows. There's nothing actually like. There's no Hollywood backing behind one. So that's what's.
And that was just like just the setting up of his.
Oh yeah, and this is great. Like, I mean, I didn't see it in the cinema. That's the sad thing. I wish I did because apparently in the cinemas people just up dancing and singing along.
Yeah,
apparently it was really good. But I saw it on a DVD, like literally like when it came out of DVD straight away. I bought it and I watched it on that, and it was good. I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
But it's not a film in any way. It's like basically a documentary.
Yeah, they need to nail this one as a serious thing because a lot of the made-for-TV ones are really cringy and meme-worthy and like I just see tips and I'm like, oh my gosh, what they're thinking of this. We'll see that one anyway. All right, Dan, we'll leave it there then. Thank you so much for joining us on that.
No, not a problem at all.
Yeah, always good to have you on, and it's perfect time to have you on for this one.
Yes,
you will away more, so it'd be really good. But yeah, thank you so much. You can catch Dan at Music Fishbowl on Instagram and Twitter. So give him a shout, and if you want to be, if you're one of the musicians listening on, you can message Dan. Try to be get in contact if you are an artist as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Dan, and we'll catch you soon. I think you've got one coming up soon, haven't you?
Yes, I've got an episode coming out as we're recording, it'll be out on Tuesday, so that's 2 days time. But obviously if this isn't out by then, it's already out, so you can go listen to that. That's with an artist called Fabulous Seth, who's a Ghanaian R&B and hip hop artist. He's got a great single out called No More. It's really good, so yeah, go check him out as well. But his episode's coming out soon, so if people want to find out more about him, it's like a nice little 30-minute episode, nice, short and sweet, because I didn't have much time to record with him myself, so I managed to sort of get a really good interview in, really nice, concise one. So yeah, it's a good introduction maybe to the podcast for people, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely check it out and check out Dan's other stuff as well. And thank you for joining us at Chaitaku over here. We'll try and get some more stuff out, but you can go and listen to all of my old stuff on Spotify, and this will probably be up on YouTube, and the audio will be on Spotify as well.
Nice.
And usually catch me on TikTok with short form videos and stuff like that. But yeah, we will catch you soon, whatever you're up to. Have a good one. Have a good Sunday. I'm going to get up and do this housework. And Dan so, hey.
I will be in the gym.
I've listened to some Bob Dylan or some maybe Robbie Williams. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Ya.
Bye.